Good morning, Chairman.
Good morning and welcome to the virtual meeting of the Children and Young People Scrutiny Committee. My name is Councillor Rob Kendrick and I am the Chairman of the committee. Welcome to all members and officers in attendance today. The audio feed of this meeting is being broadcast via the County Council's website. And I'd also like to welcome the members of the press and public who are listening to our meeting today. Anyone invited to speak during today's meeting should unmute their microphone and switch on their camera. But do please turn off your camera and microphone when not participating. If you wish to speak, please use the chat function and type speak as a comment. All officers and members are welcome to use the chat function. Requests to speak will be collated by the Vice Chairman, Councillor Alexander Morn. The Senior Scrutiny Officer will indicate in the chat when a new item has begun. And if you experience any IT issues during the meeting, please end the call using the red phone icon and rejoin the meeting using the link previously provided. If you experience connectivity issues while speaking, please turn your camera off as this may help. If you continue to experience IT issues, please contact Simon Firth, the IT engineer, for assistance. Now, can I ask that members who are intending to leave the meeting or are returning to the meeting indicate using the chat function? But officers do not need to do this. Can I ask Trina Cope, Senior Democratic Services Officer, to confirm the presence of all members and officers in attendance at the meeting? Over to you, Trina.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. Can I please ask you to confirm your presence when your name is called? Councillor Rob Kendrick.
Present.
Councillor Alexander Morn. Councillor Morn. We'll come back to that one. Councillor Matt Bowles.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs. Wendy Bokit.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Rob Fuchs.
Present.
Councillor Julie Killey.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Colin Matthews.
Present.
Councillor Mark Whittington.
Present.
Councillor Linda Wootton.
Present.
Councillor Ray Wootton.
Present.
Mrs. Megan Matchin.
Present.
Thank you. Miss Alex Sayer.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Patricia Bradwell.
Present.
Thank you. And Councillor David Brailsford.
Present.
We also have the following officers present at today's meeting. Heather Sandy, Executive Director of Children's Services. Jill Chandonnaire, Inclusion and Attendance Manager. Tracy Johnson, Senior Scrutiny Officer. Tara Jones, Head of Service, Boston and South Holland. Joe Kavanagh, Assistant Director of Early Help. Martin Smith, Interim Assistant Director of Education. And Stacey Waller, LSCP Business Manager. We also have the following guests. Chris Cook, Independent Chair of the LSCP. Joanne Davison from the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner. And Fenella Chambers from NHS Lincolnshire Clinical Commissioning Group. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Trina. Has anyone who is participating in today's meeting not had their name called out by Trina? That's a negative, I think. We're okay to carry on then. The first item on the agenda this morning is apologies for absence. Trina, do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we've received apologies from Councillor Matthew Fido, the Reverend Philip Johnson, and Mark Jones, Police and Crime Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
Chairman,
yes.
Before we go on, could I just confirm, is Alexander Morn now here? No. Okay, thank you, Chairman.
Continue. Hopefully he'll join us. He may have connectivity issues, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Trina. We'll move on to item 2, which is declarations of councillors' interests. If any member would like to declare an interest, can you please indicate in the chat? I'm now time to speak. Do we have any declarations of interest?
Chairman, there are none.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 3, minutes of the meeting of the Children and Young People Scrutiny Committee held on 9th of October 2020. This item is to confirm and sign the minutes from the last meeting of the committee on the 9th of October as a correct record. Do I have a proposer and seconder on the minutes, please?
Yeah, happy to propose, Chairman.
Thank you very much.
I'll second Councillor Kendrick.
Thank you very much.
Chairman, may I interrupt, please? We've had an email from Councillor Moore this morning in relation to an inaccuracy.
Thank you, Katrina. Yes. Could you
Yeah, subject to the declarations of interest at the previous minutes, his interest being declared as working for Streets accountant. It was actually missed off the previous set of minutes. So yes, so that was an inaccuracy, Chairman.
if that could be, if the minutes could be amended, Katrina, to indicate that, that would be great. Thank you very much. No other comments regarding the minutes then. And we've had the proposer and the seconder, is that correct? Have they been recorded? Tracy, indicating.
Chairman, yes, we've had a proposal and seconder. We now just need to do a roll call vote to approve them.
That's it. I just wanted to double check you've got that's right. So we're now voting the minutes, and you are voting on whether you agree that the minutes are a correct record. Trina will call out the name of each member present in alphabetical order. We're having to do it this way this time. And you are asked to state for, against, or abstain. So I'll go back to Trina, if you could take over for that, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So, Councillor Matt Bowles.
For.
Councillor Mrs. Wendy Bokit.
For.
Councillor Rob Folkes.
For.
Councillor Rob Kendrick.
For.
Councillor Mrs. Julie Killey.
Abstain. I wasn't at the previous meeting.
Thank you. Mrs. Megan Matchin.
For.
Councillor Colin Matthews.
For.
Councillor Alexander Morn, is he here yet? No. Miss Alex Sayer.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Whittington.
For.
Councillor Linda Wotton.
For.
Councillor Ray Wotton.
For.
That's carried. That's 9-4, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Katrina. I note we have a message from Councillor Whittington asking for his usual expression of interest be recorded. I understand, of course, he has to do this at every meeting, so his councillor interest needs to be recorded as previously, if that could be done.
Could Councillor Whittington say what that is, please, for the purpose of the people out? Obviously, they won't know what that interest is. So, Councillor Whittington, could you possibly say that?
He's online now.
Yes, hello, hi. Just to confirm that my adopted son, who is currently still in receipt of support from the Barnardo's Leaving Care Service, but he will be 25 in February. So after then, I'll no longer have to declare it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whittington. That's the minutes now agreed. We now move on to agenda item 4, which are announcements by the chairman, Council for Adult Care, Health and Children's Services, and Chief Officers. At this stage, I have no announcements to make. Any executive councillor announcements? Councillor Bradwell?
Yes, just a couple, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, I just want to congratulate Martin Smith, who's with us today, and he's been appointed as the Assistant Director for Education recently. I know he's been acting up, but he's now our permanent officer. So I want to congratulate him and really look forward, and I'm sure the committee do, to working with him in the future. Just another couple of items very quickly. Just to report to committee, the Secure unit was recently inspected, and I'm pleased to say that they got a very good inspection with some very positive comments about how they look after young people who obviously are remanded into the secure unit. And these are children, not just Lincolnshire children, they're mainly from other parts of the country, but that's good news as well for us. And then the other thing that officers are very quickly having to put together is the funding that we got from government for free school meals. Obviously, we've got 20,000 young people who have free school meals every day. And obviously, we need to offer free school meals to children and parents who require them for Christmas. Will be February half term and Easter half term. So we're just in the pros and cons of trying to develop a system which is going to be easy to deliver across the county. So obviously in December we'll be able to bring you more details back about that, but obviously we only heard, I don't know whether it was last week or the week before. Time goes so quickly when you're getting government announcements. Yes, so we'll bring that back to you, but just to let you know that we are in the throes of getting all that put together. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Bradford. That's good news on all fronts, and obviously appreciate changes constantly coming from government that we have to adapt and adjust to. So appreciate that and your comments, and also on Martin's appointment. Look forward to working with him over the coming months and years. Thank you very much for that. Chief Officer announcements. Are there any Chief Officer announcements? Heather Sandy?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to echo my congratulations to Martin Smith. He's worked really well in the interim role and supported schools incredibly well during the pandemic response. So we're really delighted to have appointed him substantially to that role, and I think it's it will be of real benefit to children's services more widely.
Thank you very much. Any further comments from any officers? No. Right. Thank you very much, Heather. We now move on to agenda item 5, which is the Lincolnshire Safeguarding Children Partnership Performance Update. This is a joint report that advises the Committee of the performance of the Lincolnshire Safeguarding Children's Partnership, the LSCP, during 2019-20. And I'd like to welcome Chris Cook, who is the independent chair of the LSCP, and Stacey Waller, who is the LSPC CP business manager, who will be presenting this report and providing a presentation. I'd also like to welcome Joanne Davidson from the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, who is attending on behalf of Mark Jones, and Fenella Chambers from the NHS Lincolnshire Clinical Commissioning Group. Joanne and Fenella are representing the police and health on behalf of the partnership. I will be allowing Joanne and Fenella to participate for this item, and they are welcome to ask questions to Chris and Stacey. So it's over now to Chris and Stacey for your presentation, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you for inviting us today to give this presentation and form part of this scrutiny. As the independent chair, I think scrutiny is extremely important to this role, so thank you. We do have a presentation for you, and Stacey's just going to put that up on my behalf, and it will be a joint effort, so we will be presenting to you, both of us. So if I could have the first slide beyond the opening slide, Stacey, that would be helpful. Thank you. There we go. So this is our structure, ladies and gentlemen, of our partnership. Quite an in-depth structure, a robust one, but it meets the needs to safeguard children in Lincolnshire. And as you'll see on that left-hand side is your very selves in that important scrutiny role, feeding into all aspects of the work that we do. Right at the head of and the top of the page, you'll see in that structure we have an assurance executive, and that is sorry, I didn't know if there was a question. No? Okay. So the assurance executive is new to our structure, and since March, and in particularly the lockdown, has played a really important role with our challenges over COVID. We established this in March, and it became and still is a weekly meeting, and it involves Heather Sandy, the Director of Children's Services, Councillor Patricia Bradwell. We have a senior police representative and a senior health representative, and I am the independent chair of that group. Right from the very start, we linked into the Safeguarding Adults Board and the Safer Lincolnshire Partnership to create a risk and issues log in respect of COVID-19. We formed that together as a tri-board approach, and we sent that off to the local resilience forum that manages on the county-wide response to COVID. We identified our risks and issues, but we asked the question of the resilience forum: have you any other risks that you feel you've been able to identify through the work that you're doing? We also presented this structure to a national webinar for safeguarding children, and it was received as good practice across the country. And so Lincolnshire, I feel, once again has taken the lead in its response to safeguarding children. Below that structure, we've got the strategic management group, which is, it says what it is. It's the strategy. It comprises of senior members from a multitude of different agencies. We've got the 3 key strategic partners in the insurance executive. They also take part in the strategic management group, but with a wider variety of agencies involved in that. I also chair the strategic management group. Then we have the operational delivery group. Once again, that's what it is. And it's operational managers working on the front line and heavily involved in the work to support children. We have 6 subgroups, and I would describe those as the engine room of the partnership. They work on the detail, they work on policies. Very important, the multi-agency approach to policies. So all agencies across the county have a common approach to these difficult and complex circumstances. The policy and procedure, education and training, they deal with a lot of detail, particularly around policy. A significant incident review group. If we have a referral into the partnership regarding a serious case, the significant incident review group will examine the details of that case and then make recommendations to the assurance executive. We also have a responsibility to report into a national panel and also carry out a rapid review. Now, that rapid review puts pressures on all agencies to bring their information together and report to a national panel. Our education subgroup, extremely important, links into our schools and colleges across the county, and very important for our school children and young people. We have a child death overview panel, which is chaired by Dr. Julian Sagerato, and once again, a very important subgroup. Excuse me, extremely sad, any child death in the county. And as you may have seen from the documentation we provided, in the last year, there's been 28 of those deaths. Having said that, extremely tragic, but they are in the main natural causes, but very sad indeed. Our child exploitation subgroup is extremely important. Exploitation is developing nationwide, and we need to be ahead of the game. And so we've introduced our child exploitation subgroup. And then we've got our quality assurance with children's and adults in the Safer Lincolnshire Partnership. Over the last 2 years, we seem to be working more and more across the partnerships and the boards. And I think that's important because there are a number of cross-cutting issues. So that is our first slide, just to give you a a flavour and a picture of how we are structured. So if I could move to the second slide. Thank you very much. So our strategic priorities, and our first one is tackling child exploitation. I already alluded to that how important it is and how it's developing. You may be aware, I'm sure you all are, that initially a few years ago, exploitation hit the headlines in some of the towns and cities around the country around sexual exploitation, but actually it has become wider now. And our exploitation subgroup covers children who are missing, county lines, trafficking, modern slavery, and the digital threat. And the missing children is extremely important because where a child goes missing, and on a number of occasions, that clearly becomes a trigger that they may be being exploited. So it's important for us to analyse those situations. And that analysis does take place on the slide. You'll see in what we describe as MACE, multi-agency child exploitation arrangements. So there is an operational MACE that sits in the county and the strategic MACE, and they look at the cases and the triggers and the trends across the county, once again to keep ahead of the game. Very important for the frontline practitioners to have the tools to do the job. And we have created a new screening tool for all the practitioners and partners, and that's been agreed across the partnership and published with supporting guidance. Not easy for frontline practitioners to deal with these complex issues, but providing them with guidance and policy and support is crucial to their work. And the third bullet point there on the screen is the taxi drivers, a child exploitation e-learning module. And it continues to receive a high take-up. The district councils are very proactive in their work on child exploitation, and we do attend their forum on that subject. Taxi drivers are the eyes and ears of the community, and previous inquiries across the country have indicated that children can be moved from place to place by taxis. So it's important that taxi drivers have this type of training. So that was tackling child exploitation. I'll move across to enhancing an emotional well-being of children and young people and hand over to Stacey. Over to you, Stacey. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, so our second strategic priority has been enhancing the emotional well-being of children and young people across Lincolnshire. So embedding of Healthy Minds in Lincolnshire. So Healthy Minds has been operational across the county for a number of years now. It's a service that is commissioned by LPFT and offers evidence-based group interventions either through self-help, workshops or one-to-one sessions for children and young people. They also offer parents workshops and support and advice for parents and carers. And Healthy Minds and CAMS did a collaborative assurance presentation to the LSCP operational delivery group early last year to evidence the work that they were completing in relation to this strategic priority. Healthy Minds also contribute to the LSCP 6-year pathway, which is a pathway that all professionals and practitioners involved with safeguarding children across Lincolnshire subscribe to and follow in that cyclical process. So Healthy Minds deliver a module on our behalf around children and young people with mental health. Thinking about online safety campaigns, so recognising the impact and exposure of children and young people's presence and influence online, including grooming, bullying and exposure to inappropriate materials. Chris, who we've just heard from, set up an online threats multi-agency and cross-board meeting, and what followed from that was an online safety campaign which targeted parents and carers and businesses, and then further to that in February 2020 to coincide with the national campaign there was further work that was focused on children and young people. We have also engaged in, at the end of last year, with the reports, the outcomes coming in earlier this year, the Keeping Safe online survey, which was circulated to secondary schools across Lincolnshire. And we had nearly 4,000 responses from individual children and young people, and the findings of which were presented to the educational subgroup. And again, using their voice, we were able to inform further campaigns and strategies around keeping them safe online. And that's a summary of the work that we've been doing around that second strategic priority. So I will pass back to Chris, I think. I'll multitasking here. No, it's me again. Sorry, Chris.
That's okay.
So our third priority is around promoting healthy relationships. And again, the LSCP has worked with the educational subgroup in particular around this one to meet and talk with groups of children and young people. I think at the heart of the work of the LSCP is very much around that engagement with children and young people and making sure that their voice informs the work that we do. And one element of this year has been their contribution to the Healthy Relationships campaign, which ran across the summer. The campaign was one of a number that was run throughout the year, and the details of some of the others are included in the report that was submitted to the committee, and some of them align with national campaigns. Campaigns include key messages for parents, young people and practitioners, recommended resources, and an active social media campaign which is promoted by the LSCP and partners. Further work against this strategic priority included working with sexually active young people procedure being reviewed, and that continues to be promoted across educational settings. Our relationship and sexual education programme officers produce guidance for teachers delivering sessions about healthy relationships in young people who are sexually active. This has been added to the procedure document and is further referenced within the suite of LSCP training that is offered to practitioners. So now it's over to you, Chris. Apologies.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. So moving on to the working together to recognise risk-making behaviours, and Stacey's already alluded to the Keeping Safe online survey. I'm particularly interested in the online world in terms of protecting and safeguarding children. Children as young as 4 or 5 are using their parents' phone. They're getting toy computers and are able to touch screens and iPads. And it's a way of life for our children today that is developing. And it's so important that we put measures in place to reduce the risks. The internet is a wonderful learning tool for the children in our society. But of course, there are significant risks to them as well. And so it's important that we put measures in place. It has been said in the past that children can go missing in their bedrooms, and that is quite worrying. And the online survey that we carried out established that 71% of students have access to their device after they go to bed. So the voice of the child is very important in the work that we do. Sometimes as adults we think we know about children and their world, but we don't always know. And it's important that we ask the children themselves what the situation is, and we learn from them as well. So moving on to promotion of contextual safeguarding practices. Contextual safeguarding is relatively new in the world of our safeguarding. It basically means keeping children safe from serious harm outside the family, looking at the context of the community, the context of the neighbourhood, and what's happening in those different parts of our towns and city. And we are working closely with West Lindsey District Council. They have offered to work with us around a project in the Gainsborough area. And so we're carrying out a pilot. We will evaluate that pilot, and it may well be that we would move that out to different other parts of the county. And the Stay Safe partnership is also a very important aspect of our work. We do have an e-safety officer as forms part of our partnership, and he works closely with the Stay Safe partnership which is led by the Safer Lincolnshire Partnership. Stay Safe go into schools to teach children, educate children, increase their awareness of a number of different issues. And e-safety, or the digital world, is just one of those. But a very important aspect of working with children to gain knowledge, to educate them, and to reduce the risk of harm to them. Next slide, Stacey, please. So moving on to slide 4, the one on the left, to identify and reduce the impact of neglect on children and young people. Neglect is an extremely complex area of work for frontline practitioners. There is a huge difference between parenting that doesn't meet necessarily a standard and neglect. And you could have a situation where families live in a deprived area and maybe that home conditions are not that good, but not necessarily their fault, but the children are actually loved and cared for. So it's a very complex area to differentiate between those sort of issues and the complex area of neglect. So we put together a neglect strategy to help frontline practitioners for them to have a common understanding of the issues, and so they can work closely with families to actually resolve matters. So that's a really important aspect of our work, and I'm sure Heather, in her role as Director of Children's Services, a lot of her staff are dealing with these issues on a daily basis. So moving over to the one on the right, Stacey, I'll bring you back in there, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So in relation to identifying and reducing the impact of DA, domestic abuse, on children, young people and families, we've worked very closely with the Safer Lincolnshire Partnership, who have governance for domestic abuse in Lincolnshire. And I think, as Chris has alluded to previously, a lot of the themes and all the areas that we're focused on are also areas of concern for the partnerships, and we believe it's very important that we work collaboratively around these areas. So with the Safer Lincolnshire Partnership, we've worked to develop a toolkit following research that's been completed locally, also included the standardised language and identification of behaviours to help understand the prevalence and impact of child-to-parent care abuse within Lincolnshire. There's been close working between the LSCP training team and the Safer Lincolnshire Partnership domestic abuse coordinator to update and develop a training package, which has been extended now to include a course on coercive and controlling behaviours. The current offer is under review, and we anticipate that the LSCP will continue to be heavily involved in this work with regards to delivering training and campaigning around raising awareness. Operation Encompass, as you may be aware, this is a national scheme whereby police notify schools whenever one of the children enrolled with them has been present at an incident of domestic abuse where the police have been called to. In Lincolnshire, the scheme was launched by the Police and Education in January this year and is continuing to be reviewed in relation to the impact. And again, the LSCP are part of the review work involved with this. I'll move on to the next slide. So this is just a summary. Again, there's more detail within the report that was submitted to the committee. It's just really to highlight the work that has been completed during 2019-20, but obviously given the current climate and situation, we've been unable to deliver face-to-face training during the majority of this year. However, to confirm for the committee that we have converted our online our face-to-face offer. So the interagency safeguarding children and young people training, that 2-day event, is now run across a number of e-learning and virtual workshop sessions, and feedback from practitioners that have engaged with that has been positive to date. I think it offers them a flexibility which previously they haven't had, and working in those smaller groups has offered extra opportunity for engagement. And we've also converted the child exploitation through, again, a combination of e-learning and a virtual workshop, which is hosted by our training and development officers. And we'll continue to review how we deliver training in the forthcoming year, given the feedback that we've had from professionals and practitioners. The next slide. We think it's important to bring to the committee and raise with them about how we are working with young people. Excuse me. And two of the key ways that we're doing this is around our junior online safety officers. So prior to lockdown, the training team were going into primary schools across the county to train junior online safety officers. So these are year 5 students in primary schools that are volunteering to be the digital leaders within their schools and advocate for online safety. So they had previously attended 29 schools and recruited 109 junior attendance safety officers, our JOSOs. And following the successful conversion of face-to-face training events in the 6-year pathway to online courses, we're now able to offer our junior online safety officer recruitment workshops virtually as well, which is fantastic. So during a year when children have spent more time online for education, entertainment and social interactions, we felt that online safety has remained a core area of focus for the LSCP. And launching this month, we've had 36 schools have already signed up for the virtual workshops, and we've got 2 more sessions which are due to run in the new year. And it's clear that the demand for the programme is high, and it's great that delivery has now resumed. With regards to the Stay Safe partnership, again, Chris has already sort of mentioned our involvement with this, and what's on the screen there is some of the feedback from schools with regards to the work that was delivered on a face-to-face basis initially. So in 1920, so in the year 1920, we had 99 days that were booked and completed. These were run in mainstream schools, so 89% were mainstream schools, 6 were special schools and PRUs, and they also ran 2 days in the Lincoln Secure unit as well in Sleaford. They have started again ahead of this new lockdown to go back in and deliver, and I think schools are really enthusiastic about having them deliver face to face because of the benefit that's there for the students of having the practitioners that have been Dan, who works for the LSCP, going in and really engaging with the students in a face to face way. So that will continue to be delivered, and I think as long as the demand is there, and that's a fantastic partnership work that the LSCP are involved with. So I'll pass back to Chris, who will sum up what we're going to look forward to in the coming months and year.
Thank you, Stacey. Looking forward then to next year and the next few years, it's very important, and I've already alluded to exploitation, but it's extremely important that we have the right level of evidence. And so we need to carry out a needs analysis to further develop the problem profile for exploitation in Lincolnshire. It's no good guessing where our problems are. We need intelligence, we need information, we need to be able to analyse that. And the work will be continuing with that. I am having meetings with the the Safer Lincolnshire Partnership and the Adults Board independent chair. We'll be looking at some form of tri-board approach to that, because, for example, modern slavery, generally the slaves are adults, but sometimes are children as well. But where there are adults, there are families and children are involved as well. So it cuts across the different partnerships, that type of exploitation, as county lines does, where sometimes adults are exploited and sometimes children are exploited. So it's important that we understand what our problem profile is in Lincolnshire. It's important that we continue to engage with children. As I've said, my particular interest is the online threat to children. And we will have another Keeping Safe online survey, because as trends change, we need to be aware of that and be able to respond to that in a positive way. We will be reviewing our business plan and priorities in light of COVID-19. because COVID-19 clearly is going to move into next year and all the challenges that will bring with it. But some of the headings within our current business plan will not change. We will still respond to neglect. We will still respond to the complexities of exploitation, but we need to actually carry out a review of that. And we need to complete our Section 11 audit. When I refer to Section 11, I mean Section 11 of the Children's Act 2004 that places duties on a range of organisations, agencies and individuals to ensure their functions and any services they contract out to others are discharged, having regard to the need to safeguard and protect the welfare of children. We carry out this important function. In some areas of the country, quite a few actually, it becomes a self-assessment that is completed. In Lincolnshire, we actually have a more robust process where we train moderators from the different agencies. All agencies engage with us on this, very positive, and we go out to organisations and almost carry out a mini inspection to establish that they are meeting their statutory requirements. And then we're going to review our training facilitation in the light of COVID-19. We need to have a mix and match process where we can carry out some virtual training and some face-to-face training. And I think it's been working so far since March when we first went into lockdown, and I'm sure that we'll achieve that. Just finally from me as your independent chair, what I will say is I have worked in other areas of the East Midlands who are committed as well as Lincolnshire, but I have to say that what I've found is that partnership working in Lincolnshire is very strong. There is a high commitment by all partners to work together to safeguard our children, and that is very impressive. So, Chairman, that completes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's very good also, Stacey, for what you've said. I don't think there can be anything more important than safeguarding children. It's such a vitally important area. And thank you again for your presentation. Can we move over to questions now? And Councillor Morn, if you could give me your speakers list, please.
Yep, Councillor Ray Wootton, Councillor Mark Whittington, Councillor Rob Folkes, and Fenella Chambers from the NHS as well would all like to speak.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morn. So if we can start with Councillor Wootton, please, your question.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Councillor Wootton.
You mentioned county lines. Have you seen an increase in children regarding county lines? And also, do you expect that once this coronavirus moves forward with perhaps more unemployment, there'll be an increase in children committing offences?
Well, in answer to your first question, I can't say that we've seen a significant increase in the county lines in Lincolnshire. We tend to be an importer rather than an exporter, I mean this is led by the police, as you can imagine. But from the knowledge that I have, and I'm sure the police would have a greater knowledge of this from an operational point of view, that children tend to move into our county under the exploitation, and so we are dealing with children from some other parts of the East Midlands or the country. And so there needs to be strong relationships between children's services and the police, both in this county and externally as well. But it at the moment, as far as I'm aware, it is not a major problem. But having said that, there is no room for complacency.
Can I just add something there, Chair? Sorry. Just to add to that, And I think just finishing on what Chris said about no room for complacency, the Stay Safe Partnership this year has developed their programme. So the offer going into school for year 9 and 10 includes a session around county lines as well. So that preventative work for our young people will be offered through the Stay Safe Partnership. Just to add, thank you.
Back another question, Chris. Do you think then with the increased unemployment there'll be an increase in children committing offences?
Well, I think with increased unemployment and with COVID-19, it always makes it difficult to respond to that for the frontline agencies. The criminal gangs will use every opportunity to exploit in every circumstance, and so we need to be aware of what level of exploitation is taking place, and that's why I referred earlier to a needs analysis to look at a problem profile, and part of that problem profile needs to include the impact of COVID-19. My understanding is that drug dealers have found it quite difficult being on the street at times in the normal way of life because of at times there's been a lack of people on the street and a lack of movement due to the COVID-19 restrictions. But as I say, we mustn't be complacent, and they are very flexible in their work because they're in this for a lucrative business to exploit these children, and these children are victims. They're not offenders. They are clear victims of exploitation by criminal gangs. But having said that, I'm confident that the Lincolnshire Police are structured in such a way to combat this issue.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Whittington, your question, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Chris and Stacey, for a very good presentation, which I found very informative. I was going to raise the subject of county lines, but Councillor Wootton's already raised it. But on my other list, it's really good to see that you're doing some work around, online issues, because I read in the paper in the last week or so that more and more children are reporting bullying online. And I'm just so my first question would be around that and what the partnership can do around that to increase the awareness and to encourage children to report it in. And linked in with online is the fact that, with lockdown, obviously children are at home more, and then that kind of leads into they've not been at school as much. And I'm guessing that one of the key ways of potentially identifying issues and concerns would be a child's presentation at school. So I'm just wondering how, if children have not been at school as frequently as during lockdown, has there been is there sort of any sort of issues around abuse or neglect being hidden by children, not being at school, not presenting at school? Sorry, I had a brief glitch. I thought I was going to lose you then. And then I sort of get into the whole issue of homeschooling as well, because I also note that there's been an increase in homeschooling. And I'm just sort of, interested in what we can do if more and more children are being homeschooled, and that probably may increase post-COVID, what we can do to sort of, make other agencies aware that, a particular child is being homeschooled, because obviously that content, that link with the teachers has gone. Again, I also note, again from a report in the press recently, that they reported that far-right extremism, especially amongst under 18s, is on the increase. There's been a very worrying case a couple of weeks ago of a under 18 male down in London who appeared before the courts, and so under the prevent strategy, I think the police are sort of reported when I last looked at it was there does seem to be an increase in far right radicalisation as well as Islamic extremism, and I'm just again wondering if if children are being homeschooled and whatever, is there a link in to the prevent strategy around these issues as well, and what we can sort of do to sort of address the overall issue of child radicalisation, whether it's political or religious. And again, it's not sort of confined just to the far right or to Islamic terrorism. We know there's extremes on the far left as well as on the far right. All religions have an extremist element to them, and just how we deal with radicalisation. And the final point is on the sort of taxi drivers and the safeguarding training they're receiving. This issue actually got reported in. I'm a member of the South Kesteven Audit Committee, and yesterday we had a report in on a variety of issues. But the taxi drivers was because it's certainly in South Kesteven. Before a licence is given by the district council to a taxi driver to operate, they have to, and this is mandatory, have to complete exploitation training. Otherwise, they will not be issued with a taxi licence. I'm just wondering, is this compulsory across the whole county, or is it just down to individual district councils? And if it is down to individual district councils, what can we do to sort of, encourage them to adopt the same approach the South Kesteven's done? That you can't get a license to be a taxi driver unless you've done exploitation training. And I think, Mr. Chairman,
you've had a good go, Councillor Whittington.
Sorry,
you've had a good go.
Thanks.
Can we have the replies, please? Thanks very much.
Thank you for that. There's a number of questions there that we'll try and respond to, Councillor Whittington. First, thank you. I think they're all very good points. All very good points made. I think I might not necessarily start with the first question, but I've made a list. So you referred to COVID-19 with children being at home and not going to school. One of your questions. And when I first opened today, I talked about the structure around the assurance executive, and that's something that we were discussing very early on back in March, about the potential impact of children being at home for longer periods. And the Prime Minister held a summit back in the spring called Hidden Harm, which was attended by very senior officials from the local authorities, the police and many other agencies. And we looked at that on our risk register, and the media were actually presenting a case where there may be an increased cases of hidden harm, and so we were monitoring that with our agencies, and Heather had been heavily involved in that. But there's been no significant evidence that's come forward to date that actually there has been an increase of what we would describe as hidden harm. And although domestic abuse doesn't come under the remit of the Children's Partnership, we do monitor that as well because it has an impact on children. And once again, there's been no significant increase in that as a result of the lockdown restrictions. So hopefully I've answered that question. In terms of bullying, online bullying, the survey that we did with children, they came to a conclusion that online bullying is perhaps not as frequent as feared, and so there's not that evidence there that clearly it does take place, and the Stay Safe Partnership goes into schools as we've already described, and does a very good pieces of work to support children and educate them in terms of how to deal with and how to respond to online bullying. In terms of extremism, and I think it was actually on the morning news today in Lincolnshire, where there had been some increase in that in terms of radicalisation. But we don't govern, the Children's Partnership don't govern that particular aspect. But what we do, we seek assurance from the Prevent Steering Group regarding that important subject. And they present to our partnership board on quite a regular basis, giving us an overview of the situation in Lincolnshire, so we can challenge if necessary, but it is actually governed by the Safer Lincolnshire Partnership. And I think there was a question on homeschooling. We also have presentations from the Children's Services to our partnership, and I was only discussing this with Stacey this week, that we are assured as a partnership that Lincolnshire Children's Services have very robust structure in place that manages homeschooling very effectively. And so I think that's really good for our county. Now, I think I may have answered all of your questions, but I may have missed one. So if I have missed one, I do apologise. Please come back to me.
Thanks, Chris. Unfortunately, I lost connection for about several minutes. Did you?
I seem to have lost the question again, I think, unless it's just me.
It's not just you, Chris, I think.
I think Councillor Whittington also asked a question about whether taxi drivers across the county in different districts all had to complete the training, or whether it was just he had it in South Kesteven. Is it a county-wide policy amongst districts? I think that's what he was asking earlier.
Hello, sorry, just Chairman, I'm back, sorry. For some reason, it's gone twice in the last 5 minutes. Yes, it was a question that had SK.
I've just asked it for you, Councillor Whittington. No problem.
Thank you, Chairman, for that. Yeah, I think, and Stacey will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's absolutely right. There would be no point in having some districts in Lincolnshire having this robust process for taxi drivers and others not. We work on a county-wide basis. There has been some major inquiries throughout the country on exploitation and reviews on that, and one of the learning points from those reviews was actually the training of taxi drivers, and so we took that on board very quickly with the district councils. So we've got a county-wide process, and I think I'm right in saying that, Stacey?
I think that's my understanding as well, but I will double check just to confirm for the committee as well, just to provide that assurance, but that is my understanding, Chris.
Thank you. I mean, I have to say that I have had to nudge some areas of Lincolnshire to move that forward. Some areas have been more proactive than others, but in my role as independent chair, I've provided that challenge and they responded positively to that.
Thanks, Chris. On that, sort of, if I may, Mr. Chairman, a number of us are also, as well as being county councillors, are also district councillors. So if there are any areas that are, you know, just let us know, and then we can maybe put pressure on our local district councils. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for that.
And I believe we had a couple of other questions.
Yes, we do, Chairman. Councillor Rob Folkes and Fenella Chambers as well.
Oh, thank you very much. Councillor Folkes.
Thank you, Rob. First of all, Chris and Stacey, I'd like to say thank you very much for a very comprehensive report. I've got two comments to make, both within the tackling child exploitation field. And the first one's on county lines, which I know you've covered already with that question from Ray and your reply. But recently, very recently, I served on jury service, and the first case we had was a attempted murder within a county lines drugs gang. And I can't tell you just how appalling the whole thing was. It was just dreadful. And I remember about 2 years ago on the safeguarding board, we had the police come along and gave a very comprehensive talk on county lines. But I'd just like to say that one of the features of this case I was on the jury on involved taxis. So the training that the district councils give to taxi drivers, I'm hoping also includes some element of awareness of county lines and how taxis be within that method that they use to distribute drugs. And secondly, I'd just like to say that I've read in the press recently that the county lines are sort of morphing into in different ways, and it's good that in your problem profile that you mentioned, Chris, at the end when you were summing up, includes how you're now looking at the way these organisations work. And I'd just like to say I'm pleased and it's encouraging that you've got your eye on the ball on this entire question, because to me, county lines are it's the work of the devil. It is just awful. Secondly, and the second point now on child exploitation is that back in June, the 4th of June this year, we had a Teams meeting which I attended for the Safeguarding Board. And one of the one of the matters reported was that child sexual exploitation was fairly low in Lincolnshire. But I'd just like, can you reassure the committee that in light of the COVID-19 and with your problem profile, that the Safeguarding Board is not taking its eye off the issue just in case? And that's it. Thank you.
Councillor Fuchs.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fuchs, and thank you for your comments. In terms of county lines, of course, the organised gangs do use weapons to create a threat to the victims, and sadly, on occasions, people either are seriously harmed or die. But in terms of our child exploitation subgroup, they carry out this work, and county lines is part of their remit, and it's led by a detective superintendent from Lincolnshire Police who has wide experience in all aspects of exploitation, and I'm confident that he will lead on this work and do a first-class job in terms of combating county lines. What is exploitation this year may develop even further next year, because criminal gangs create businesses to make money, and they'll exploit anybody and anything to do that. And so this is why we need to keep ahead of the game.
Thank you.
And so the second one was the child sexual abuse thing report.
Yeah, could you just remind me of that one again? Sorry.
Well, back in June, the 4th of June, it was reported that sexual abuse in Lincolnshire was very low. So my point is, since the lockdown, is the committee, is your board going to keep a weather eye on this?
Yes, indeed. And part of my role is to chair gold groups, and gold groups are a strategy group on operational matters. Whilst we have a gold group running on an exploitation inquiry, and I won't go into any details around that because it's confidential, that is the only one that requires a gold group. We will, I can assure you that we will keep our eye on the ball. We will always seek to keep ahead of the game, because if we become complacent, those criminal gangs will actually get ahead of us, and that's not what we're here for.
I think if I can just add to that, when we sort of look at reviewing our business plan, which is up for review beginning of next year, I think what we're doing is kind of do that with a COVID lens, so thinking about what impact COVID has had on our strategic priorities in relation to children and young people within Lincolnshire. So it's not necessarily going to be about changing those priorities, but almost how they've evolved and what those needs are now in light of the unprecedented year that we've had. In relation to your first question, just around the detail of county lines being covered in the training for taxi drivers, again, I will double check that detail for you, Councillor Fox, and I will come back with the confirmation. But I'm sure that within that wide remit of exploitation, county lines will be in there. But just for assurance, I will double check for you.
No, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Folks. And we have Fenella, you have a question.
Thank you very much, Chair, and for allowing me to participate on this item. And thank you to Chris and Stacey for an excellent report and for all of the excellent work that has clearly been undertaken this year to safeguard children in Lincolnshire. So thank you. I have three very quick questions on the report. The first relates to the education subgroup and the school's safeguarding assurance. The report states that 77% of schools provided positive assurance. I just wondered if we had an understanding of the position of the other 23%. And then the second question relates to the child death overview panel. I understand that a task and finish group has been established to produce safe sleep guidance for Lincolnshire. Clearly, this is a very kind of well covered topic by the third sector and other partners, and I was just wondering how you're working with those other agencies and organisations to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel effectively. And then the final question is just on the training. The figures given show the number of people that have taken the courses. What I'm not getting is a sense of what those numbers mean. Are you reaching all the people who should have done the training? So I looked at the annual report and I see there are some breakdown of the figures there in terms of, you know, which organisation someone might come from who's done the training, but I still don't understand if, you know, are all the people at the CCG who should be doing the training, like what percentage does that mean? Does that make sense? Sorry, that wasn't very articulate. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Fenella. I thought you were very articulate. In terms of the survey and the assurance from schools, we actually thought that 70% was a first good response in the first year that we've done that. However, I share your concerns. I mean, my aim as the independent chair would be to get 100% response, and we are looking to chase those schools through the education subgroup to actually establish why they didn't respond and seeking through the governors of the schools as well. Governors, as you probably well aware, have safeguarding responsibilities as well. So we're looking to write to those schools and the chairman of governors to actually chase up that information. I think you talked about the training and what the numbers mean. Interestingly, each individual agency, of course, have their own training. And so we provide that multi-agency approach, which is so important, because if you've got a classroom full of police officers, for example, they train in the police context, whereas our multi-agency training provides that multi-agency context where you might get a nurse round the table, a police officer, a social worker, and they can interact, bringing their own cultures across the table to the actual topic. So that is really important. We aim to increase our numbers. We can't force agencies to take on our training, and we have had challenges from some agencies in the past that they are paying organisations to train their own staff, and they don't need our training. So it's not an easy subject. But if you looked at the multi-agency 2-day training, I think there's quite a lot of people get involved in that, and that has got to be beneficial. But it's not necessarily in the numbers. I think it's in the quality of what we produce. There was another question around the child death overview panel. Safe sleeping, as I'm sure you appreciate, is so important, and we do from time to time we do get child deaths and baby deaths due to what is described as overlay. Where baby sleeps between parents or with parents in the same bed, and sadly they tend to overheat and sadly they die. So it's really important that we maintain these campaigns to educate the community on this, and we do work and Julian Sagirato, our designated doctor who chairs the Child Death Overview Panel, does take on board not only third sector agencies from within Lincolnshire, but maybe national ones as well, because there are national campaigns. We don't look to duplicate anything, but we do look to maintain an education programme, and from time to time there's a need to sort of remind people, because you can have a campaign one year and then 2 or 3 years later, sadly, you get another death. So I think it's important to continue with this education programme, even though we may have been through it before.
Thank you. Happy with that, Fenella?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great. In fact, you asked one or two questions that I was going to ask, which was regarding the schools and the 23%. But, so you beat me to it on that one. If we've got no further questions, if I could just ask one. Oh, Councillor Morn, do you have a question?
Yes, we do have. Councillor Bowles would like to ask a question.
Oh, right. Okay.
I've also got a couple of questions as well, Chair, after Councillor Bowles.
Okay, over to you, Councillor Bowles.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, my question's around the online safety of children. Obviously, as a parent of a young child myself, that's one of my biggest concerns at present, especially the way the world's changing. A lot of the things for the younger children now is all gone online. So kids are expected to be able to access this stuff at home, whether it's the homework through Google Classrooms or just doing some sort of refresher work on the apps, TT, Rockstars, all that kind of stuff. So that is a real problem and concern for a lot of parents. I like to think I'm pretty switched on and clued up to it, working in IT in a school for 15 years, so understand it a bit. But there are a lot of parents out there that I know of from speaking to them that don't have that sort of level of understanding and are quite worried about it. So I'm just wondering what the partnership could do more to engage with those parents through the schools and through yourselves, just to give some more advice, some more reassurance to parents about what they could be doing and what is available to help them sort of safeguard the kids online. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think that's a really good question. We have in the past, we've had difficulties around that. We've asked that question ourselves. How do we get to the parents? And have tried actually to hold sort of workshops in the past and found challenges around that. But the Stay Safe partnership, which we don't govern, as we alluded to earlier, that does carry out work in the hope that it gets to the parents, but we can't guarantee that. And our junior online safety officers, clearly they're children and not the parents, but the idea is to develop this message so we take it into schools and we spread that message to parents as well. But it is a very difficult area, and you will get some parents who respond positively, and you get other parents that probably won't. So I think it's a very good question, but it's something that we certainly need to keep looking at, but speak and also with our colleagues in the Safer Lincolnshire Partnership to bring into that stay safe element.
More, I believe you have some questions.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chairman. I just want to turn to the report that's in our agenda packs. I've just got a couple of questions, please. On page 53, in relation to the Child Death Overview Panel, it mentions referrals. I just wondered if you could please confirm the parameters for those referrals. So who can make them, how are they made? And then I want to turn to page 22. It mentions 3 serious case reviews. I just wondered if at this stage, do you know what lessons may be learnt from those case reviews? And then on page 22 as well, regarding the multi-agency audit of child exploitation and missing, I just wondered if you could elaborate, please, on what the audit recommendations were, what's been implemented, and were any of those recommendations particularly time-sensitive? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. If I start with the serious case reviews, none of those reviews have been published yet, so I wouldn't want in a public meeting to go into any detail around that. That wouldn't be fair to the families because it's confidential information. However, there's always learning from any review, and what we do is we don't wait to publish and implement learning. We identify the learning right from the very beginning of those reviews, and we start to implement them straight away. It would be wrong to wait to implement such learning, and we have an action plan around that learning, and it is monitored by the Significant Incident Review Group. I think because it's a confidential situation around those reviews, I don't think I can say any more. But we do manage the learning. We do implement it quite early on, just to assure you. In terms of the child death overview panel, and I think Stacey, you attend that at times. The main agencies that refer in are police and health, really, because they investigate the police investigate on behalf of the coroner the tragic death of a child, and the health service, particularly the hospitals, probably receive a very ill baby or child, and sadly that child dies within the hospital setting, and they report it in. But any agency can refer in to that child death overview panel, and it would be wrong not to allow anybody to refer one in. And I think you've got a third question, but forgive me,
sorry, it's to do with the audit recommendations from the child exploitation missing audit, whether, just a bit more detail on those recommendations that were agreed between the agencies. Okay, well, thank you. No, I've not got them in front of me at the moment. I suspect Stacey hasn't either. So we will look at those for you and get back to you with some detail on that. Absolutely. Lovely, thank you.
Thank you.
If we have no further questions, and I am conscious of time, as I said earlier, Fenella has actually asked one of the questions I was going to ask. Can I just go back, though, before we wind up, on the child death overview panel? What is the age range that is used in this context? I know we have a general view or accepted definitions of child. I just want to know what age range you operate under for this, and also as regards sort of third sector organisations. I seem to recall from a previous life having some contact with, I think it was SANS, Neonatal Death and so on, organisation, charity. It may well have changed its name now. I was just wondering if there's any liaison there or any information you get through from the third sector bodies in connection with child death. That might seem a rather vague question.
No, not at all. In terms of the definition of a child, it remains the same. So the scope that you're aware of in terms of the age range would actually would become subject of the child death overview panel. In terms of third sector organisations, I don't attend the child death overview panel, so I'm not personally aware of one on that panel, but I know if required and when necessary, they would link into the relevant third sector organisations, not just locally, but once again, nationally, if necessary.
And if Councillor Bradwell wants to come in with a question or comment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just to say, obviously, as Chris said, I do attend these meetings, but it is the first time, obviously, Chris has been, and you've obviously shown great interest, which is very, very pleasing because it is such an important issue. And I think councillors really do, we're all out in our communities. So, it is good that we are aware that, and if you see something, you report it into the police. But I was just saying, because Alexandra had obviously asked a few more questions, and some of you obviously, we had probing questions, and I can't remember, Chris, when you're coming back again. I can't remember how often Chris is coming to the committee.
It's March.
Yeah.
March.
Yeah.
Because I just wondered, you know, obviously there is themes. Obviously, you've had a good overview this time, but some of the things that Councillor picked up on, maybe Chris, we could focus on them next time, or I don't know, because it is a big subject to actually just cover in a, you know, I know we've had quite a while, but it is such a big subject, from, you know, the bits that we do in school, which are very important, that preventative, right down to some of the issues that you've spoken about. And Chris is saying, actually, I can't talk about the serious case reviews, which we can't. So I just wonder, you know, for the next time, maybe, you know, you will have more information about, more in detail about how Chris and the committee work with other agencies to actually try and stop people, you know, harming children. That's all, Mr. Chairman. And I couldn't remember, so it's not that long actually when you'll be back again to actually, you know, give you another interesting, very interesting presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Bradwell. Yes, I think it is a very important topic, and obviously we look forward to further reports in the future from Chris and Stacey. The level of questioning would indicate the concern we have over this issue, so I think it's very important that we do have you back. And if I could now move on to, if we have no further speakers, which I understand that's the case, I just need to recap on the actions required by this committee, which are to review and comment on the work of the partnership arrangements in promoting the safety and welfare of children across Lincolnshire. And I would like to ask that the proposed actions are approved. However, if you disagree with that proposal, that you must indicate in the chat line, in the chat column. If there's no dissent, then we'll take that as agreed. Do we have any dissent from that? That's that the proposed actions are approved. There is no dissent, so that's good. We can move on from there. All actions, those actions are now agreed. And as I said earlier, we'll be receiving a further update from the LSCP in March, and I'm sure Chris and Stacey will take away the comments that have been made today and perhaps build that into your future presentation. So that would be great. So once again, thank you to Chris and Stacey and Joanne and Fenella for attending our meeting today. And we look forward to seeing you in March. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. If I could just make a comment before we leave, following on from Councillor Bradwell's comments, I think that's really good idea that that you have themes, and I mean, for example, we have an e-safety officer who is part of the Stay Safe partnership, and he goes into schools. He's actually working with schools on the online threat, as it were. So it's your decision at the end of the day, but if you wanted more information around what we're doing in terms of digital work, we could bring him along to your next meeting. Other than that we have training officers that work on a daily basis with the partnership and in their training role, and they could give a presentation as well. So as Councillor Bradwell said, it's a very wide subject and very complex, but we do have officers who are dealing with these different aspects on a daily basis and could provide you with more information if you required.
Thank you. I mean, there's plenty of material there for putting into future presentations over the coming years. So, yeah, we can maybe pick up one or two themes, or a theme for each of your presentations over the coming months. So appreciate that, Chris. Thank you very much. And thank you again, Stacey, for your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. We now move on to item 6 on the agenda, and just to give advance notice, I propose at the end of this item that we have a 10-minute comfort and screen break at the end of this item. So that's just to give you an advance warning of that. We now move on to item 6, which is the service level performance against the corporate performance framework, and that's for quarters 1 and 2. And this item summarises the service level performance against the corporate performance framework for quarters 1 and 2, as I've said. And at this point, I'd like to invite Jo Kavanagh, Assistant Director, Early Help, to present this report. So it's over to you, Jo, please.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick. Good morning, everybody. I don't intend to talk for very long. I think the report really speaks for itself. There are a couple of things that I would like to just draw your attention to. I think the first of which is how positive the performance is. As you know, this covers quarter 1 and quarter 2 of this year. So the whole of the period of the most restrictions in relation to lockdown. It's really positive to see that, with the exception of one area, all of the performance areas are within target, and in the case of 2, are during quarter 1 and quarter 2 exceeding targets, which is really a good reflection of the absolutely tremendous efforts that our teams have made in terms of working to make sure that the children and families in Lincolnshire continue to get a really high standard of service from us. Just drawing to attention the child protection performance target, you can see that is the area that is below target because the numbers were higher than we would like. I think it would be fair to say on this rare occasion that as senior leaders we would be concerned if we hadn't seen those numbers go up during the course of the pandemic and all of the restrictions that we were all subject to, but particularly in relation to children being absent from school. I think we are not concerned by those numbers. Our numbers are still comparatively low, as you can see in the information in the report. Compared to other areas, we remain low, even though they've risen slightly. I can report that they have come down since the quarter 2 reporting and are now at around 370 children that are subject to a plan. I think our feeling around why that might be is that clearly families were subject to additional pressures during lockdown. Children were not in school. And I think really importantly, family networks, so that the people that we would support families to turn to support them in meeting their children's needs were not always available. So grandparents may have been shielding, other wider family members may have been unavailable to them because of the restrictions we all faced during that lockdown period. And as a result, we think that's probably why the numbers have gone up slightly. I can just also say that you may have read reports in the media around Ofsted reporting increased numbers of injuries to babies as a result of the lockdown pandemic. And as you will have already heard from the reports that we've provided to you on previous occasions around the reassurance of our work during the lockdown and during the pandemic, I can report to you that that hasn't been the case in Lincolnshire. We have been really lucky and our staff have been well supported. PPE was available very quickly. We've prioritised seeing children and families face to face throughout even the most restricted part of the lockdown. And as a result of that, health visitors have continued to see children, continued to see families. Our social workers have continued to see children and families face to face. And we've done lots of work in terms of ensuring that schools have been well able to support children, and they've done a fantastic job in supporting children both when they've been at school and when they've not been able to attend school. So hopefully this will provide the committee with some really good assurance around these measures that continue to perform well even during those quarters. Just the final thing I was going to say before I'd be happy to take questions was around the 2 measures that aren't reported on, and that's simply as a result of delays with the Youth Justice Board in terms of reporting on the 2 youth offending measures that are usually included, but obviously they will be included next month and we'll be able to give you more detailed information on those areas then. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you very much for that. I'd now like to invite members of the committee to speak on this report. Councillor Morn, do we have anyone indicating at the moment?
We do, Chairman. Councillor Whittington and Councillor Folkes.
Right, over to you, Councillor Whittington.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and thanks, Jo, for the report. A couple of questions. The first one, it's really good to see the performance regarding the time taken to manage a child with an adoptive family is holding up really well. I know it's a difficult time at the moment out there for for people. I'm just wondering, hopefully, obviously, this is dependent upon families coming forward willing to adopt children. I'm just wondering if, as a result of COVID, have you seen a reduction in the number of parents coming forward, or what the current situation is on that one? And the second point really is on the children not subject to a child protection plan. I was pleased with the comments that you said. Obviously, following the spike in cases, the numbers are coming down. Because my question was going to be, obviously, it looks like there's a bit of a backlog been built up, and I was just wondering if you felt that within the team, obviously, a hard-working team with a big caseload, have you got sufficient resource within the team? So thanks, Mr. Chairman, and thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Just in relation to the adoption question, I think the reason this performs so well is because we do really good recruitment of potential adopters, and that's not changed. That work's continued throughout the COVID pandemic. So we do have sufficient people willing and who are approved for adoption. So there's no challenge there. As many of you will know already, we always try and find family connections, children that can't remain with their birth family. So the number of children who are placed for adoption is quite small comparatively, but we do still have good links and sufficient families where we do need them. In relation to the second question, in relation to the child protection numbers, I think our staffing and our recruitment and retention of social workers is really strong in Lincolnshire. We don't face some of the other challenges that other local authorities across the country face. It has presented some new challenges. So the way that we induct and train new staff starting in the organisation when much of our work is currently being delivered in a virtual way. I think it's really good because our staff have been able to access offices, obviously in line with all of the current guidelines and safety and risk assessments that are required. But we are able to offer that ongoing support to those staff that really need it, because they are going out every day, seeing families, doing some fantastic work, which is challenging without a pandemic and is ever so more challenging with the other difficulties they need to manage. But we're able to, because of the support of our corporate colleagues in property and other areas and business support, we're able to enable staff to go into the offices. So there are no current challenges around availability of staffing at the moment, but it is something that we're focused on all the time.
Thank you, Joe. And we have Councillor Fuchs. Councillor Fuchs, you have a question?
Yeah, they're not questions, Rob, they're comments. I'd just like to say that this is an unprecedented time we're going through with this COVID, and I'd just like to congratulate Joe and all the people at Children's Services for really excellent results, and it reflects extremely well on Children's Services altogether. So I think, a big well done. With regards to children subject to child protection, I think vigilance, maintain eternal vigilance, and care leavers and suitable accommodation, I think that is just simply terrific, bearing in mind the conditions you're working under. And I think it's excellent and very well done. Thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you, Councillor Fuchs. I think we'd all endorse your comments as regards the unique situation that child services find themselves in, and the fact that the things are doing so well, regardless of the pressures and the difficulties that COVID has placed upon everyone. And I'd hope, Joe, you'd convey our comments to your colleagues.
Absolutely, we will do that. And just to come back on the comments around vigilance, we're absolutely scrutinising our performance and have been all the way through the pandemic, and in fact probably overly scrutinising the performance in some instances, and have kind of stepped back, because when you're reporting on performance on a weekly basis, sometimes you can see a few blips here and there that actually over the period of a month don't raise any issues. So we're trying to strike a balance between that, but I think we'd echo all of us as senior leaders would echo how fantastic our staff have been and continue to be. And I know Heather wants to come in probably on that point.
Heather.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, again, I would just say thank you to the committee for their comments. I think the staff in children's services have been incredible. Our vision is putting children first, and my goodness, have those teams worked hard to put children first in an incredibly challenging situation. We're really proud of what they've been able to achieve during the pandemic, and it is a real pleasure to lead such a dedicated child-centred team, and that goes for as well the senior members of the team who are sat here today. Jo herself, they work tirelessly to support their own teams to deliver that. So I really appreciate that feedback, and we're very proud of this performance report.
Thank you, Heather.
As does Heather, of course. As does Heather, who took on this role just before the start of the pandemic. So I think we all feel incredibly well led by Heather as well.
That's very good news, and congratulations.
Nice birthday present for Heather.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Councillor Fuchs. Councillor Morn, do we have any further questions or comments?
No, Chairman, there are no other speakers.
Thank you. Well, just to round up on that then, once again, thank you to Jo for presenting this report, and as you'll be well aware from the comments of members of the committee, we're very supportive of the work that you do, and compliment you and your colleagues on dealing with a very difficult situation and producing such fantastic results. I think that's a credit to everyone in children's services. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate your support.
Not at all. That's all the speakers. Just to recap again, the actions required by this committee are to review and comment on the performance of the measures that are above and below target range, and we've done that. So again, it's moving on to agreeing that the proposed actions are approved. Again, we're not having a roll call. We're just asking if you disagree with the proposed actions that you indicate in the chat function. It's looking like there's no disagreement, so that is carried as it were. So as I indicated earlier, I would like to have a 10-minute comfort break. It's now 11:37 according to my clock. So if we can come back in 10 minutes time, please. In 10 minutes from now, it's now 11:37. Can I ask you to turn off your cameras and microphones for the next 10 minutes, and we'll resume in 10 minutes time. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chairman. You need to put your microphone off, Chairman. Chairman. Can you take your microphone off?
Chairman, I wonder if it's worth logging out back into the meeting again.
Need to put your Chairman, the microphones are, I've muted them all, Tracy.
I wonder if we can maybe start the roll call with the reigning members under Councillor Morn.
Yep. Councillor Morn, are you present?
Yeah,
thank
present.
you. Councillor Bowles.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Wendy Bokett.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Rob Fuchs.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Julie Killey.
Present.
Councillor Colin Matthews.
I'm still here.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mark Whittington.
Present.
Councillor Linda Wotton.
Present.
Councillor Ray Wotton.
Present.
Mrs. Megan Machin.
Present.
Thank you very much. You've made it back. Miss Alex Sayer.
It looked like she left the meeting earlier, so I'm not sure she's rejoined yet.
Okay. Councillor Mrs. Bradwell, have you managed to come back? I don't know.
Yes, I'm here, but only till 12 because I've got another meeting just after.
Okay. And Councillor David Brailsford.
Yes, I'm present, Katrina.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kendrick, are you there? I think he's frozen, Tracy.
Looks like he has. Councillor Morton, are you okay to take over chairing for the time being?
Yes, Tracy, certainly so. While we wait for Councillor Kendrick to sort out his technical issues. So the next item on the agenda is agenda item number 7, which is the elective home education update. This item provides the committee with an update on elective home education since schools reopened in September. I'd like to invite Jill Chandanair, Inclusion and Attendance Manager, to introduce this report. So over to Jill, please.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me loud and clear and see me. The report I'm going to present to you today is about elective home education, some data and some general information. For those of you who may be a bit unfamiliar with elective home education, just to remind you that it involves, it's the parent's choice to continue their child's education at home. It involves taking a child completely off role, the parents funding the education, and the schools do not support the education and the learning of that child at home, but it is a parental right to be able to do this. Now, the report shows September data up to the 9th of October, that there was a significant increase in the number of parents who took their children out of school to home educate. Just to give you an update on that data, we now have 531 children that have been taken out of school to EHE, compared with around 206 at the same time last year. So in summary, September was our highest month. We had around 300 that did not return to school following the summer holiday and the lockdown. October, it went down a bit to about 102, and then November up slightly, but not the same numbers as in September. So a slowing down, but still significantly higher than last year. So in terms of schools, they are doing a really good job at trying to keep children in school or getting them to attend. And we communicate with schools all the time over this to support them and to be as flexible as they can around children coming to school and putting in flexible timetables and so on. But inevitably, some parents are worried about are anxious themselves, or their children are anxious, and so they are taking them off role. We do look at the numbers of children that are coming out from particular schools, and you've got that data. And we will look, we are just about to start a review and just talk to those schools about the circumstances that cause the parents to go electively home educate, so that we are confident that there's no malpractice going on and there's no off-rolling. From the data, you can see that from the report, you can see that the main reason parents are giving for going EHE is COVID related. So it's either directly they're saying it is COVID, or they're saying it's health reasons or a temporary arrangement. So we suspect that a number of those that have gone EHE over this period do intend to return when they perceive it to be safe to do so. In terms of the vulnerability of those children, again, looking at the data from September, there doesn't seem to be a high number of those children that are currently on child protection plans or child in need, or are not an overly high number compared to last year of children with education healthcare plans. However, we will closely monitor this, and we will look at any children that sit just underneath that as well. And those have possibly been previously on a plan, just to make sure that we are safeguarding these children. And we are really aware that once they're out of school, the opportunity to get the support is significantly reduced. So as part of the process, we ask parents about their intention to educate. So just to reassure you that our local authority have quite a lot of contact with parents that are electively home educate. We check on their initial plan, what they intend to do. We check on them again in 3 or 4 months' time, or up to 6 months' time if they educate their children, other children at home. And then, providing everything's okay, we will revisit them annually. So compared to other authorities, that's quite a lot of contact that we have. What we've dealt with already from September is that initial check-in of the plan, and allowing us to return children back to school if there isn't any intentions to educate at home. We've had a fairly good response from parents, and which allows them to move on to the next stage. So it's kind of further evidence that those who have taken their children out, this particular cohort, do want to educate their children and do want to make sure that they can return to school when they feel it's safe to do so. So in conclusion, it's not ideal, because we've got children out of school who wouldn't ordinarily be out of school. But we will continue to monitor any concerns about that new cohort, but it's not highlighting anything in particular at the moment. But we're not going to take that, as I said, and we'll continue to look at them. We're always communicating with schools about how they inform parents about what it means to go electively home educate, and one of the consequences are that they might take the child out of school and not be able to return back to that school when they decide to, if that school is full. So we want to make sure parents have all that information available to them. We have leaflets for parents as well about their responsibilities when they go EHE. We always offer an early help to parents, and they can take that up, and we would take that forward if they do, so that we're making sure that the safeguarding is in place as well. Earlier on, you mentioned radicalisation and EHE. Again, we've become aware of particular political parties or groups that will name themselves as political parties. For example, Patriotic Alternative is one, and how they set up their website to draw in parents of gone EHE. So we're well aware of them, work with the Prevent team, train our staff to recognise anything in the home that we might be concerned with, and obviously share that information with schools as well. So So parents who do go EHE are aware of the online risks, as it's likely that their children will be online more in terms of providing that information. And we do report back to the LSCP on EHE through the education subgroup, as was mentioned earlier. That completes my presentation. Just if there are any questions. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Jill. I'm sorry. Sorry I lost everyone earlier. So we now have questions. Councillor Morn, have we any questions?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we've got questions from Councillor Whittington, Councillor Bowles and Councillor Kelly.
Thank you very much. Sorry I lost connection. Councillor Whittington, over to you.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Jill, for the report. I'm really pleased with some of your final comments relating to the link and the safeguarding work you do back to the prevent strategy, because, and I hadn't thought, and the point you raised about there are groups out there seeking to exploit home educators by setting up websites that purport to offer, support to home educators, but actually have got a far more sinister political motive behind them. It's something I hadn't thought about, but it's really encouraged that is being monitored. Because I think around this, for me, I think it links back into the report we had earlier on safeguarding, to make sure that, obviously if children are in mainstream schools, warning signs can be picked up. So I was encouraged by the comments you were making about, the importance of, monitoring, safeguarding for those children who are being home educated. Questions are for, I'll deal with those who sort of decide to get temporary at the moment, short term. I'm guessing potentially that's resulted in an increase in workload for the team, obviously, during the lockdown. And just sort of a few comments about, have you got sufficient resource to sort of be able to deal with that? And are you expecting that potentially as vaccines become available during 2021 and more of the population are being vaccinated and hopefully the infection rates are coming down, that we may see those parents who've taken their children out on a temporary basis returning to mainstream education? So that would be my first point, as well as the resource implications for the team. And then around those who sort of decide to stay out for, home educate their children up until sort of the age of 16, 18. Because obviously children in mainstream education are being prepared for GCSEs and then A levels, and they go through all the key milestones, the key stage indicators at all the age, I think 7, 11, whatever, and all the way through. And I'm just wondering, for the children who are being home educated, is there a way of you monitoring a child's progress against those key stage indicators? And then how do those children then, because obviously the modern world it's qualification based, you need to go on to further courses, you need certain GCSEs, potentially if you want to go to university you need A levels, you need technical qualifications. I'm just wondering how people who are educated, how they can access those sorts of important things, because it strikes me as if they educate children at home and they leave, get to 16, 18 and then have no qualifications. What future that child's got in a qualification driven world? I know some sort of independent tutors offer the ability online for people to do O and A levels, which sorry, I'm showing my age by saying O levels, GCSEs and A levels. They've got the ability to sort of do these courses online, but I think they're aimed more at older people looking to get back into education. So just some thoughts on that, George, because I think that's a really important point. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Whittington. Jill.
Okay, sorry, can you hear me? I couldn't unmute.
That's all right. You're now unmuted.
Yeah. I'm now unmuted. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. In terms of workload, yeah, you're absolutely right. It has put some pressure on the team. The only the good thing is that EHE has been changing, not just this year, but it's always changing. It's always increasing. So we are constantly looking at our our processes to see if we could run it more effectively and efficiently. So it wasn't a surprise to us. We had to kind of then do that again. We have kind of, particularly around our advisors that we get in to look at the progress. We've tried to prioritise particular children that might be more vulnerable. So certainly those that are child in need of child protection, EHCP, those children that the officers has picked up as vulnerable, we would aim to see those as quickly as we can. But there's some families who've been home educating for quite a long time, so in theory we can sort of leave them a little bit longer. So we have played a little bit with timescales to help us do that. Around the return to school, I think you mentioned about, are we expecting them to return? I think I said originally that there does seem to be an indication that those parents, once they feel the school is safe, will return. The DFE have suggested that the local authority meet with parents before they go EHE, and precisely to be able to talk through all the consequences of going EHE and making sure they're fully informed. I think the question you asked about GCSEs, that would be raised at that kind of meeting, and so parents are clearly aware that if they do remove their child, there are going to be consequences around the sitting exams and so on. And this clearly happened at the end of the summer period, where those families that were EHE that were set to do external exams found it quite difficult because they had no teacher assessment in place. So I think there is going to be more work about informing parents of if they decide not to return, what the consequences that be. But at the moment, we don't really know whether that is going to be a major issue or whether hopefully most of the parents will go back. For those families who, just to reassure you, for those families who do not engage with us and do not provide us with an intention to educate, we do have a process that will be a return to school through a school attendance order, which is a legal process. So, we're aware that there probably are families out there that are not education, but they are in a process to get them back into school, which involves, let's say, a legal process.
Heather, did you want to come in on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of highlight the committee because I understand all of the questions, but it's just to remind the committee that obviously home education in England is completely lawful and is a really positive choice for many of our families, and many of our families educate their children to a really high standard. So whilst I understand some of the nitty-gritty questions, I think it's really, as this is a public meeting, I think it's really important to clarify that for lots of parents, this is a positive choice they make after a lot of careful consideration.
Thank you for that, Heather. I believe Councillor Bowles has a question now. Councillor Bowles?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it was just a quick question, just for a bit of background information, really. I'm assuming it's already been answered at previous meetings, but I just can't for the life of me remember it. It's just on the figures regarding the numbers of children home educated on page 50. East Lindsey seems to be an awful lot higher than all the rest, well, over 300 when the others are in the 100 mark. Is there a reason for that, or an explanation behind that, if possible, please?
The numbers have always been high in East Lindsey, and there are more children in East Lindsey generally. There are particular groups that exist in that area that are very set up to support children. So there are a couple of EAT communities in that area, but generally it is a high. It always has been a high number, and it hasn't caused us any concerns since September in terms of a rapid increase in that area. But yeah, it is just been historically, and I think it's because there are some particular groups that that if a family decide to go EHE, that they kind of join that group. But we do keep an eye on any increases in any particular area to see if there's anything that might be going on in that area that might be encouraging families to go EHE more than in other districts. And just to pick up on Heather's point, I do think it's really important to say some of these families won't return back to school because they'll actually find that their children are thriving at home, being home educated. So for some families, it will work and it will be the right choice. We just need to make sure it is a choice and it is made with the right information to make an informed choice.
Councillor Moore and other speakers, please.
Yes, Chairman, I think Councillor Kelly had a question.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Kelly, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just by chance on Tuesday, I was listening to a report by the Education Select Committee on this particular topic. And obviously, I agree with what you were saying, that I think some parents will find that their children do actually positively thrive by homeschooling, even though I do think personally, after being a teacher for 30 years, that children may miss out socially. And what the thrust of the conversation was on the debate I was listening to, and this is quite a long time in the future, is the problem was that there was no register, national register. So actually, because at the moment, homeschooling has been, before COVID, has been quite a small proportion of the school population. And now the trend seems to be upward. What they were actually talking about was, you know, that in the future, you probably do need a register so that you can monitor attainment, etc., etc. So obviously I've read what where you are, and I think it's really fantastic. But I just wondered whether you had in mind, that sort of thing, taking into account that the trend is probably going to be permanently upwards.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I think we're very lucky in Lincolnshire that we do have families that will register, and schools let us know about families. So I think we have a pretty good idea of those numbers of children that are electively home educated. Obviously, the need for a register has been pushed forward to the government for a number of years, and I know that has been presented to them again recently. So I do think that it possibly will be listened to at this point, and perhaps a register will allow us to have a much clearer idea of the numbers of children that are electively home educated. But I think in Lincolnshire, luckily, we do get parents who self-register with us if they've never been to school before, but we obviously got the system for schools to let us know as well. So that's been very helpful for us to have a full idea of the numbers. Have I answered your question? Sorry.
You have. No, it wasn't a criticism. It was just that because I just happened to be listening to
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I thought I should, ask the question because that's what they were saying. That's the direction that it's going in. So, I think it's purely up to the parent, isn't it, whether they inform the local authorities. It's not statutory duty, is it?
No, it's not statutory, and it's not, and I think you mentioned about what it might look like in the future. There's no set rules as to what is taught and whether exams are set at all. So it is, the law is quite loose on this. But again, most parents will present to us some really good evidence of the education they're teaching their children at home, and we hope they will continue to do so. And where they can't, we've got plans in place to either guide them in the right direction where they can do that, or get them back into school.
I mean, my understanding is that even though children are homeschooled, they're still eligible to sit GCSEs and A levels, aren't they?
They are. They can go to they can go to a centre and do that. I don't know if it's the easiest to process for all of them, and not everybody wants to have that qualification, but it is available. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, that's a very interesting point that you've raised, and thank you, Jill, for your answer. I see that Councillor Whittington wants to come back. Councillor Moore, are there any other speakers apart from Councillor Whittington wishing to return?
No, there aren't, Chairman. Only Councillor Whittington. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go over to Councillor Whittington. You can have a second bite of the cherry, Councillor Whittington.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. It's just a thought that struck me as listening to the conversation and the debate. Obviously, we sort of monitor home education within Lincolnshire, and I guess each county or each obviously, I guess in London, it's the boroughs that do it. I'm thinking in terms of what do we do regarding the children who are transitory, and thinking in particular of children of travellers who tend to move around the country, and also fair people who obviously, fares move from town to town. There are families as part of that, and I'm just wondering, it must be very, very difficult to ensure that those children are actually receiving proper education, because one week they may be in Lincolnshire, the next week they're in Nottinghamshire or Yorkshire or wherever. How do we do that? Thanks, thanks, Jill.
Thank you, Catherine.
Okay. Yeah, you're probably aware that a number of traveller children do go elective home education, particularly when they get to secondary school age, so that they don't transfer into secondary. We're really lucky in Lincolnshire because we commission a service that supports children of secondary age children who have chosen to go electively home educated. So we are aware that there are difficulties for parents of traveller communities to educate their children, but it is a cultural choice, and they do travel, and it makes it more difficult for them to attend school. So we have a service, and they support us, and that feeds into our monitoring of all children. Travelers children probably travel less than we think they do, so some of them are quite permanent in areas, so we do get to see them, and if they travel, they are allowed to travel whether they were in school or not, and we would guide them as to what they should be doing while they're away, and pick up that monitoring of their education when they return. But we have raised our concerns with the national group around the impact of COVID on travellers, and although in Lincolnshire we haven't seen a worrying number that have gone EHE at the beginning of September, I do feel we're beginning to see a few more going out now, when schools who have tried their hardest to continue to engage with these communities are finding it a little bit more difficult now. But again, we have a service that supports that as well. So I think we're well able to support the travellers, whether they're in school or whether they're EHE.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you for that. Councillor Moore, do we have any further questioners?
Questions, Chairman? No other questions.
If I might ask one or two questions, Jill, in sort of conclusion. Obviously, I'm unfortunately, due to losing contact at the beginning of your presentation, which I'm, really annoyed about that it all went down. I may have missed these points, so obviously stop me if this has already been covered. Just a couple of things. Firstly, obviously on the data it shows the reasons given for people selecting to home educate. I was just wondering if there's any research being done as to whether, for example, where this has been done, there are older adults in the household, for example, maybe a grandparent living there, which obviously is very much in the high risk category, 70 or 80 plus, whether that's been a reason, which, is quite understandable if a child goes to school, picks up COVID and then comes back and gives it to an elderly relative, and whether there's any research done on that. And finally, perhaps an easier question is, do we have sort of data from comparative authorities regionally and nationally to see where we fall within the national picture on this? I appreciate the first question probably can't be answered because the research.
Yeah, probably say that the answer to the first question is no research is currently done, but I do think you're right in that a number of those families would have somebody in their family that is vulnerable, but we haven't got the actual data to look at that. We do sit on regional groups. I don't have the data with us at the moment. If we compare ourselves to some of the similar geographical areas, I do think we are on a par with those. So, for example, the last meeting I went to, and this number will have changed already, Suffolk, that's a similar geographical area to us, had 4 times the number of gone EHE this year compared to last year. And, you know, that's not too dissimilar to us. So there's nobody sitting in these regional meetings saying, no, we haven't had a significant increase in EHE. So I do think we are in line with others, but you know we will continue to look as to why if we're not, whether it's across the key stages or is it across the areas, to see if there's anything different happening in Lincolnshire compared to other counties.
Yeah, I mean, it might be interest to see whether there's difference between predominantly metropolitan areas and rural areas and or something like that. I don't know. I think so, and I think the rurality does you know have an impact. I don't quite know what it is, but I think it does perhaps need to be looked into, like you said. Thank you very much for that. I take it, Councillor Moore, we don't have any further questioners.
No, Chairman, there's no further questions.
Thank you very much. Well, that's all the speakers. Again, to recap on this particular item, the actions required of us as a committee are to review the data for elective home education and comment on the analysis provided in the report. Well, I think we've done that to a good extent. Can I ask that the proposed actions are approved? Again, if you disagree, if you'd indicate in the chat column, and then if we do have disagreement, we'll have to do the roll call. So I'll just have a quick look on the chat column. There seems to be no dissent from that proposal. So I thank everyone and say those actions are now agreed. And thank you, Jill. I'm so sorry I missed part of your presentation.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll catch up sometime with you on that one. But thanks again for your presentation this morning.
Thank
you. We'll now move on to agenda item 8, which is the Partners in Practice programme update. And this item provides an update on the Partners in Practice programme in the county in Lincolnshire. And I'd like to invite Tara Jones, Head of Service, Boston and South Holland, to present this report. So it's over to you now, Tara.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I'm really delighted to present this report this morning. For those of you that are not familiar with the Partners in Practice programme, I'll just do a brief recap. So Partners in Practice is a genuine partnership between the Department for Education and outstanding to good local authorities. So the Partners in Practice, their role is to look at innovation, so to answer some of those difficult questions around how to improve practice for children and families. Part of their role is also to provide sector-led improvement to those local authorities that need to improve, and also to support the Department for Education to shape and test policy on wider programmes. So moving on to the Lincolnshire PIP individual projects, we had 6 projects sitting under the programme. The first one was around practice frameworks. This is all about creating a practice framework, which our framework is Signs of Safety and Restorative Practice. And this underpins our vision and values. It's strength-based, it's solution-focused, and it's how we work with children and families. So in terms of the highlights, we created practice advisor roles. These had a significant impact in supporting practitioners to drive and develop the Signs of Safety framework of restorative practice. And really pleased to say that the support of the practice advisors was recognised at our last Ofsted inspection. We also developed a single child and family assessment and a single plan. This child and family assessment was from early help through to social care and through to looked after children. This assessment was really great because it was co-produced with children and families and with staff and our partner agencies. Again, this was highlighted within our recent Ofsted inspection, and particularly the direct work that our practitioners did with children and families. This particular project is now closed within the Partners in Practice programme because all functions have been able to be sustained within existing budgets, and our practice framework now sits within our quality and standards service. So moving on to the second project, that was our early help review, and the aim was to improve the interface between early help services and social care. So one of the highlights I want to draw your attention to is that we created a central early help front door, and we've now aligned that to our customer service centre and our social care front door, and that's managed under one team manager. Again, that project is now closed to Partners in Practice, as we've been able to sustain that within existing projects. Moving on to our third project, which was and is the Caring to Learn project. The aim of that project was to support schools to be more attachment aware, and also for our carers and our residential homes to support the learning and academic achievement for looked after children. The highlights at the time of writing this report, but I feel it's increased. We have 40 schools that are accredited as a caring school, 22 foster care households accredited as a learning home, and 3 children's homes accredited as a learning home. And it's really excellent to see that the Caring to Learn programme won the Children and Young People's Now Award 2019 for a local authority who had improved significantly the outcomes for looked after children. We are continuing this innovation throughout COVID-19. We're also delighted to receive additional funding from the Department for Education for the Caring to Learn project through 2021. That was in recognition of the lead in time to develop that important programme, and also so that we've got more time to really assess the impact on education. I'd like to say that during COVID-19, this project hasn't stopped. In fact, it's grown at a pace. So everything has been done virtually. So our workshops, designated teacher workshops, the champion hubs, and the active Facebook group have all been moving at a pace during lockdown. Then I want to move on to the next project, which is our Futures for Me project. That was around setting up a service that focused around our vulnerable adolescents, and wherever possible, divert them away from the criminal justice system and statutory intervention through social care. So in terms of a few highlights, so we've seen a reduction of first-time entrants into the justice system. We are one of 3 local authority partner in practice programmes chosen to pilot an alternative to the Youth Offending Asset Plus assessment. And we've established new working practice around missing and exploitation, which Chris and Stacey mentioned earlier on this morning. And we've seen an overall reduction in the missing return interviews being declined by young people. And we've seen an increase in the quality of those and within timescales. Again, as with Caring to Learn, we've secured further funding for 2021 from the Department for Education. Again, this was in recognition of the lead in time it took to actually scope out the project, develop it, and actually co-produce it with young people and partners. Again, the service has continued to innovate throughout COVID-19. I think what's really amazed me is how the service has found ways to engage differently with young people throughout COVID-19 using different technology. Moving on to our next project, which was workforce development. So we have improved our succession planning, so we now map who our new leaders may be. We've got an always-on recruitment campaign, and we've had a number of social workers successfully complete the National Assessment and Accreditation of Social Workers. Moving on to the next project, and that was our improvement support. So again, that's around us providing sector-led improvement to other local authorities who need to improve. So in terms of the highlights, Lincolnshire has provided 1,270 days of support to 37 local authorities. More importantly, we were an improvement partner for Rotherham, and it was fantastic to see Rotherham really improve on their journey to get a good Ofsted inspection. We're currently the improvement partner for Northampton, and early indications they did have an Ofsted visit. We haven't had sight of that report yet, but Ofsted recognised the impact that Lincolnshire had on Northampton's improvement journey. Just to finalise, we have recently received the final evaluation for the whole of the Department for Education's Innovation Programme, which included Lincolnshire's part of the practice. Lincolnshire was cited to be one of 5 local authority innovation programmes which produced significant positive impact on intended outcomes, which is a fantastic achievement. Just a few highlights from the report. So the effectiveness of our practice framework, signs of safety, restorative practice, trauma-informed practice and co-production received particular recognition. Added value was also achieved by the impact of Caring to Learn project on our placement stability, and families felt more empowered to take more ownership in developing solutions to their difficulties. So in terms of the next steps, again, we were delighted that on the 18th of November, the Department for Education confirmed that Lincolnshire was successful in a unique bid to the COVID-19 response programme. So we will receive additional grant monies, that will be with a focus on establishing a restoring family relationships scheme. This is looking at preventing youth homelessness, promoting family stability, and also increasing the opportunities for young people, you know, that the impact of COVID might have had on education training, social activities, and increasing resilience. So what we do know is the future of PIPs post-2021 is a bit unclear at the moment, and the Department for Education is currently exploring the PIP function post-21. We do know that they still remain very committed to sector-led improvement. And thank you, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Tara. It's very, very encouraging to see how well regarded we are as an authority in this field, and it's a compliment to you everyone who works in that department, that we are called upon to engage with other authorities and being one in the top sort of 1 to 5, I think you said, of authorities. I mean, that is a tribute to the professionalism and the quality of the leadership and the work done by everyone in that area. So I think everyone needs to be commended again. I have to say, one of the pleasures of chairing this committee is that we hear so many positive reports from the area that we're responsible to in scrutinising. Councillor Morn, do we have any speakers, please?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Whittington has indicated he'd like to speak.
Thank you very much. Councillor Whittington, it's over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think, Mr. Chairman, you rather stole my thunder on this one, because just make a few general comments and no real questions. I think this is a fantastic report. I just think this is so positive. It shows lots of. I think it shows the benefit, you know, of all the hard work that went in to us, you know, being classed as an outstanding provider. So on the back of that, we get the chance to participate in all of these sort of, you know, projects, and you know, working in close collaboration with the with the Department for Education. I think it just shows, and it's fantastic as well that those projects that have been completed, we've actually been able to incorporate all of the learning into our, into our current process and policies to strengthen us even more. I can't remember the last time I read such a more positive report. Actually, it's fantastic. And it's really pleasing as well to see that, obviously, we've assisted with helping Rotherham through their difficulties, and also currently with Northamptonshire County Council as well through theirs. But also in general, we've been able to go out and help a whole plethora of local authorities across the country to help and support them. I just think it just shows. I think all I really wanted to say is a massive thank you to everybody in the team, from Heather downwards, all the way through. You get so much positivity coming from the children's department. It's just it's fantastic, Mr. Chair. And I know we've previously thanked the team for the difficulties that they've faced through COVID, but if we can just echo those in light of this report. What a fantastic department we've got, a fantastic team. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Whittington. I certainly endorsed your remarks. Heather, did you want to come in on this one?
I just wanted to thank the committee and thank Councillor Whittington, and we'll make sure we relay that back to the teams, because the feedback from the committee is really important to them. So we'll make sure we relay that back to them and say how valued their work's been. It's much appreciated.
I'd be grateful if you could do that, Heather. I think it's very important. That,
it might be nice. It might be nice, Chairman, for us to draft a letter from you to the teams.
More than happy to do that.
Good, thank you.
More than happy to do that. Yes, thank you. Councillor Morn, do we have any other questions or comments?
No, Chairman, no other speakers.
Thank you. I just wanted to pick up on one point in the excellent report on page 56. Whenever I see the word risk in a document, obviously my eye focuses on that, I have to say. Although it obviously is not a serious issue, I was just wondering about how we do compare. It says we fare better than our statistical neighbours and national averages. I take it that there's nothing too awry in that area, Tara.
No, not at all. No.
That's good. That's good news. Right. If we have no further questions or comments, then we have to again look at what we're required to do, which is to seek assurance regarding the progress and the outcomes of the Partners in Practice programme. And I think we've had excellent assurance in that regard. So can I ask that the proposed actions are approved? Please indicate in the chat if you disagree. I guess that will be a definite unanimous agreement that we approve those actions. So thank you very much. That those actions all agreed, and thank you, Tara, for your presentation. And as Heather indicated, I'm more than happy to send a letter to everyone congratulating them on the success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now we can move to item 9, which is the Children and Young People Scrutiny Work Programme. This item sets out the work programme for 2021, and I'd like to invite Tracy Johnson, who's our Senior Scrutiny Officer, to present this report. Over to you, Tracy.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have a couple of updates for the 15th of January meeting. The report on the Emotional Wellbeing and Behaviour Outreach Services Review has been removed from the agenda, so that will now come later in 2021. I think just further work needs doing on that. And in addition, a briefing paper on the school admissions policy and coordinated schemes for 2022 intake will be circulated to the committee by email for information. And that's it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any comments, suggestions, ideas from members of the committee? I take it that is... Oh, Councillor Morn.
No, there are no speakers, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morn. So we're asked to review the committee's work programme as set out in this report and to highlight for discussion any additional scrutiny activity which could be considered for inclusion in the work programme. It would seem that we're happy with it as it stands. Obviously, there will be changes over time. We know these things aren't written in tablets of stone, so we have to be a little bit flexible. Again, can I ask that the proposed actions are approved? If you disagree, please indicate in the chat column. I think there's no disagreement there, so we can take it that the work programme is agreed. So we're now coming to the end of this meeting. That actually concludes the formal business of the meeting. I thank everyone for your attendance, the contributions from our speakers and the input from members. It's much appreciated. As you'll be well aware, this is the last meeting of 2020 and the next one is on the 15th of January next year. We do have Christmas coming up, so I'd like to wish everyone a happy Christmas. I hope that you'll all be able to celebrate it in some form or other, depending on how COVID restrictions go. So I do hope you have a good Christmas with your families if possible. And I look forward to seeing you in the new year. You now can leave the meeting using the red phone icon on the taskbar to end your call. So again, thank you very much for your attendance today, and I wish you